Hey guys, welcome back. This is James again. I'm going to be redoing the Dawson's graphic. If you've been following Dawson's story, he's been making a documentary about uh, Jack Paul's life, and so there is something that he talks about, and like okay, the concept is about going from good to bad. So anyway, what I wanted to do is to represent this graphic to just make the same copy of. Sorry, I'm going to try to do the same thing, but I'm going to be using Taylor Swift's music. There is no Taylor Swift's photos. There is no reason why. It's just that I couldn't find Dawson's pictures that were high resolution enough for me to use. That's why I decided to go with Taylor Swift, because the photos are readily available. So the first thing, I'm going to be working with this, and we're going to try to come up with uh, effects to show the same thing. So let's get started. Now I'm going to create a new layer here, and I'm going to call it this be 2000 by 2000 pixels, maybe just a flat layer, or we shall change it. So we're going to bring in this layer. So I'm going to be working with this one, and below that I'm going to be using this one. So I'll be leaving all the graphics to this image, to these images, in the description below, and all the brushes, the brush that I'll be using. If in case I use any special brushes, I'll leave everything in the description, so you can feel free to follow along. Okay, so here we can do a basic image preparation, so we can give this a little bit more warmer tones if you want. So but I think it's kind of okay, so we don't have much to do with this. So let's delete that levels adjustment layer. Maybe if the curves adjustment layer has anything. Okay, and hue and saturation, I can just move the saturation all the way up to make it very more dramatic, just like the way it is in Dawson's stuff, because what that does, it just gives a feel of warmth, tone, and friendliness, whereas the other this one gives the feel of being cold, and like, so it gives the message of the graphic. So here I'm just going to merge these layers. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to be bringing in this one as well. So I'm going to bring in this image. So I'm going to decrease its opacity, because I want to align the face together. Okay, so mostly maybe the eyes, and so that's what I'm trying to do here. But if you can't do that, if you can't align them properly, don't worry about it. Just make them as close as you can. Put this back to 100. Now we can also give this one moment. We can also, if you want, you can give it, like, let's say, a more darker tone, or a more colder, a cold like feel. Cool tones, for the most part, they help to represent this feeling of like uh, the opposite of being friendly and warm and welcoming and stuff. So whenever you try to do that, that's why. So I'm trying to bring in some blues there. So yeah, we now have this. So yeah, I'll be going with these ones. So the next part, I can put this below the normal layer, this one, and now I'm going to mask out this top part. I'm going to bring this lasso tool here, and I'm going to just cut out like a razor. So just make a rough selection just like that, and then click on the masking option. So the masking option will reveal the layer just like this, but we want the opposite. So I'm going to click Ctrl I. So here you see that now there are kind of, now the background image is being shown as well. So here the next part, we can add a shadow to this image. Okay, so that we define some depth points. And the way to do that, we can just Ctrl J to duplicate that layer, and the layer below this layer, the one below, we just put a blur on it, so a Gaussian blur. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So you see that it's making a blur there like that, and click OK. So once you have that blur, now we're going to, of course, mask out these other parts that we don't want to be blurry, like the edges of her body. So we bring our brush tool. So here we have our brush tool. Let's give it a topmost hardness, and just to hide those other parts that we don't want from here. Okay, to bring up the opacity. I'm going to bring up the opacity, and I'm going to just hide the other parts because I don't want it to be blurry elsewhere. Now we can go over here and just add a solid color adjustment layer, make it black. Okay, and clip it to this mask just like that. So when you turn it off, you'll find that there is that sort of shadow on the back. Okay, so the next part, we can actually just merge both layers, just so that we don't have to worry too much about that anymore. So the next part is we're going to begin working on the compositions. First of all, we can burn this, we can dodge and burn this layer here to define some points, like some highlights, like for it to appear like it's a texture being burnt off. So you just subtly go over there and just burn on off some points, because now it will show like this is going up like this. It will give that illusion. The next part we're going to try and do now is to work on the zippers. So we're going to be using this one. I'm going to bring my lasso tool here. So backspace with, if this layer is locked, it will give you a content aware fill, and then just if content aware, then it will delete those. And now you can unlock this layer and just delete with the magic wand tool. Just click once and it will select all the white parts, and also these ones we want them selected, so click shift and add them to the selection as well. That's by shift and clicking the magic wand, and then we delete. That's backspace to delete, and Ctrl D to deselect. Now we can bring this into our image. So we need it right around there like this, but you can reposition it. So this is just a little bit of photo manipulation basics. So if you find that your zip is not matching the composition of your image, you can just simply do this. Just go over here to the solid color adjustment layer, and first of all add a solid color, clip it to that layer, which is the layer of the zip, and double click on that to bring your color picker and just select your average color. So we are imagining that this is our average color. Click OK and then change the blending mode to multiply, so it will give you the same kind of color. And maybe if in case you want to change the contrast, you can come over here to the fill options and just define it a little bit. So when you turn it off and on, you'll see that it kind of matches much better. The next part we're going to do is making our zippers or zips, whatever. So we're going to be working with this again. If your layer is locked, bring your lasso tool and then just kind of delete everything here. We're going to delete everything apart from this only one zip. Let's unlock this layer and then delete, so that we have only that tool that we want. If you want this to have a high res, high resolution, you can take some time and just using the pen tool, just make your own. But I'm going to just do this because of time. I'm going to use this same tool here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm just going to give it dimension. So let me first of all duplicate that right there, so that you'll see the comparison at the end. And with my brush tool, I'm going to reduce it. I'm going to turn down its opacity to maybe 76, and the soft brush. Lock the transparency here on this layer right there, and I'm going to just make very subtle like that. And then because I'm assuming the light is coming from this area, and I'm going to change the opacity, because of reflected light, I'm going to paint also this side just a little bit. Okay, so when I zoom out, you'll see that this one has a little bit of dimension to it and this one doesn't. That's why I'm doing that. The next part I'm going to do is bring up my mixer brush, the mixer brush tool, Now this tool, it's very important, but if you want me to make a video, in-depth video explaining how it works, let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, for now, let's concentrate on this. So we make a diameter roughly the size of our tool here, the zip, and then we click just like that, so that it's selected there, and we go back to the Taylor Swift option here, the graphic, make a new layer, and now we can kind of put those layers just like that. Okay, but now if you see that it's not spaced properly, again you can come over here and just decrease the spacing so that you get the spacing that you really want. Okay, we now have kind of this zip here, and we can put this layer below the original layer here, below this this layer, because we're going to be blending them, so never mind. But if in case you want, you can again do it again so that it's kind of perfect. And now I'm going to make also for this one. Now for this, again, for the sake of time, I'm going to use, where is that? I'm going to use the same one. I'm going to just rotate it and then sample it. So it's like that. And then come over to this side and do the same. So here you'll see that we are almost halfway done. Now you'll see that we have the zip options there, just like that, and then this as well here. Okay, so the next part you want to do is to kind of match them together. Let's first of all merge these two layers, because they doesn't really matter. Now we're also going to merge this layer with this layer. Reason being is because we're going to be blending these two together so that it gives it this realistic feel, and we're going to be adding some sort of like we're going to be adding some sort of blur to it. Okay, so Ctrl E will merge our layers together so that we now have this layer here, and the next thing we're going to do is to try and blend them together. Okay, so to do that, we're going to come over to this smudge tool, but in the smudge tool I have a brush here. It's a custom brush. I think I'll be leaving it in the description below as well. Okay, if in case I find it very useful to you. So the next thing that we're going to do is, of course, on this layer we are going to just make sure that we have a strength of 9%, and then we're going to just kind of blend each of these together. So we are just trying to sell the idea of like these are together. So this is a blending brush. So by blending these two colors together, we kind of come up with this feel of this being a blending brush. So I'm going to go through and do it for each of these zip linings. And even if I could have done with Dawson's images that exist on the internet, but some of the details you would, like this part where it needs zooming in, you wouldn't have seen because the whole image would be pixelated, so it would look realistic, whereas it's not actually realistic enough because all the pixels are blurry. So it's important that you don't cut corners. You just take the highest resolution image that you can and come up with the most realistic feel that you can get to, and that will kind of help you to understand the dynamics of of this. Okay, so if you do that, if you use blurry images, they will deceive you. Okay, so here we have this. Now it kind of looks all right for now, for example. But if you need to, you can change. We can come over here and just move that in place just a bit. Just like that. If it's where we want it, we can just then merge them together as well, and then with our smudge tool again, our blending brush, can just make subtle blends together. So it's the small things that count. Okay, so here we now have, so maybe you could leave it here. So maybe the other part you can bring up your dodge tool to just define the shadows and the highlights of this image. So here you can, the dodge will brighten up some parts like that. Don't overdo it, so that just pass it over the image just a little bit to show like that there is some damage being done as this is passing by, and to give it dimension as well. And next part, we can burn those pixels as well. These pixels here, for example, you can just pass by and burn them a bit to make them give more contrast. Okay, so once you're done, so this is our image. This is the same one that was there. So you can try experimenting with your own ideas, your own images. Try to come up with different images of your own, and let me know if there is anything that you didn't understand, or if there is anything that you would want me to repeat. I'd be glad to help, and I hope you found value in this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. I make daily videos on design and graphics like this, so make sure you subscribe. And I am starting to actually post every Wednesday and Sunday. I'm going to try to stick to this routine, so don't forget to subscribe or come back again on Sunday, so that the time in between is for you to practice. And I'll speak to you in the next tutorial. I wish you all the best and speak to you soon.